Hi, and welcome back to Marketing Over Chai. Today, I'm joined by Almira Bardai, and in today's episode, we're following her beautiful career journey, where she's run her own international PR agency and communications company called Jive PR, and now she helps senior leadership with their brand building skills. So, welcome, Almira. I'm very happy to have you here. So, let's dive into your journey. First things first, Almira, what's your go to power drink? For me, it's always a cup of ginger tea. What do you like?
I love champagne. I'm coffee and champagne, and because we need hydration, yes, there's water. But I'm all about celebration. And so for me, it is literally having a glass of champagne to celebrate.
I love that. It's such a positive way to look at things.
Yeah.
Let's spill the tea on your career journey, or maybe just pop that bottle of champagne and celebrate your wonderful, inspiring journey so far. So you've built an incredible career working with some of the biggest brands in Canada and abroad. Can you walk us through your journey in that brand building and communications, and how did you get started?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one was that I went to university for communications, but I'm not going to mention what it was, only because I don't think that the four-year degree, actually taught me anything. But the reason why I chose the school that I did is because it had the co-op program. And for me, that was huge. And it's really about the philosophy of life that I had is about opening doors. And where can I help you do better, open doors, opportunities that are available to me? So I ended up, it was great. I went to French immersion when I was a kid. So I was fully fluent in French, and there was an opening with a department in Quebec. And so because I spoke French, I got the communications job. I basically just started working in communications. And so that would have been my third year of university when the co-op program started. And I was originally hired to do 4 months. I expressed my interest in doing a second term, and I got to do it. But there, I did incredible, extraordinary work. And part of the benefit for me was that some people did leave the department. So I actually got to do their work. And I was 19 years old doing actual senior work. But what happened is that I ended up meeting the regional director of the communications team in BC while I was in Quebec. And I asked if I could come work in his department. And so again, it's about what are the opportunities that present itself. And so he said, well, I can't do co-op, but there was a federal program to hire students. And so I've actually been in communication since I was 19 years old. And again, it really opened up the doorways about what was possible. And the communications experience that I had when I was working so young in my industry, I actually ended up being recruited into a PR agency before I even graduated university. And that's something that I do really recommend to everybody, is to be able to have some internship or volunteer experience when you're trying to get your career started, because it's invaluable. It literally places you ahead of other people. And at the agency, it was one of the top agencies in Canada. I worked on Nike, Sheraton Hotels, an Express partnership that we did. I did the press conference when Best Buy bought Future Shop. I did a number of crises, and I did Molson, a beer company. It was amazing. And the next step that I knew I wanted to take was to move to the UK. So moved to the UK. And again, it's about the opportunities that are available. And before I moved to the UK, the tech market was booming. Recruiters would place people everywhere. They didn't care that you actually had a visa, that you were not allowed to work a real job. It was the holidaymaker visa. Oh, you're not supposed to work a real job, but they were placing people anyways. However, when I moved, and it's really about, the saying is that turn lemons into lemonade. And I'm like, I'm turning mine into a lemonade empire. There's no stand in my mind, And
I love that.
It's the philosophy about how can I do this, or if there's a challenge that's presented to me, how do I take advantage of that in my favor? And as we'll talk about, when I started my own agency, it was in 2008, right after the bottom fell out of everything. But it was actually brilliant timing for us. So going back to when I moved to the UK, on a holidaymaker visa, not allowed to work a real job, go and find a job yourself. And so I temped. And then one day I was in the tube in London and I saw an ad for Cobra beer, an Indian beer brand that was initially designed to go with Indian food, but was really going mainstream. So to give you a sense of it, its biggest competitor was Tiger. And so I just saw an ad for Cobra on the tube and I thought, well, I wonder, I did Molson PR back in Vancouver. I wonder if they want a PR person. So I cold called the marketing director And are you looking for a PR person? And he says, I'm looking for a secretary. So I said, I'll be interviewed to be a secretary, but I want to do PR and be your secretary. And so we did the interview, and he was like, is this a joke? You're still going to get the secretary salary. And I said, I'm fine to do that, but I want to do PR as well. And so I did that. And he's like, who's this crazy chick? But I mean, his desk was clean within 3 weeks, frankly. So that was like the best part of this. But I ended up, I was still a secretary, even though the next year I would be head of global PR. But I used all of my skills, and it was amazing. I did internal communications. We were adding offices across the world. I managed communications there, managed agencies, built an in-house PR team, did financial communications. My CEO was the hottest entrepreneur in the UK. His mentor was Branson. We did deals with Virgin Atlantic. Selfridges called me. We had designed these beautiful new bottles, unlike anything that existed and that even still exists. They're these stunning embossed bottles. And so they called me to put the product in the window. And it was unheard of to have this role. And at that point, I was 26. Then I decided I wanted to move to Australia, got a job in communications, came back to Canada in, I think it was 2006. And nobody would hire me, because they said I've been gone for too long, which is very typical of Canada. Like, we're not always the most open-minded people. We've seen that. But I know I'm Canadian. I'm from here. And when I moved to the UK, I actually went and researched all of the journalists so that I knew their names, I knew what they wrote about, so that I could be employable by an agency or by a brand. And again, it's taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to you. And so when younger people or people wanting to get into the industry come and ask me about a role, or I'm saying, okay, well, what preparation have you done to even have this conversation with me? What preparation have you done to tell me that you know anything about my business and my clients? And they're like, oh, well, don't come to me unless you've got something to offer me, right? And so coming back when I couldn't even get an entry-level job, mystery shopper at the phone company stores, like you got to do things, right? And so I, again, being in PR, I had two contacts actually left in Vancouver, and I reached out to them for freelance work, and I ended up freelancing. That would ultimately turn into meeting my future business partner, who was freelancing as well. She was actually a Bollywood producer in India, and she's blonde hair, blue eyes. So they stayed by her. And she was freelancing as well. And I just looked at her one day and I said, what do you love about running your own company and what do you hate? And I love to run the business and to run the clients, and she loved to do biz dev. So it was natural that we would come together, and her background was film and entertainment, and my background was consumer brand. And so it really just merged together. And the whole idea was supposed to be, her and I, maybe a part-timer. And we got so busy that first month we had to hire 4 contractors. And that was 2009 also. And we decided to be virtual. And everybody thought it was a joke. And now I'm like, I'm a visionary, right? We were contract team members, which is really where the world has moved to. And it was to be able to have that flexibility, to be able to have joy and spare time in our lives. We wanted to go to the gym, things that we naturally take for granted. It wasn't done back then. And so the business grew. Our first business was Granville Island Brewing, and the client was Virgin Radio. And then it just grew and grew. And a few years, we hit the 7-figure mark. And by the time I sold the business to her in 2018, and by that time, we'd had Flight Centre as clients, a number of top shopping malls. We did stuff for VIF. We did stuff for Disney. And we really also did a lot of work in the nonprofit sector, boys and girls clubs. We did our baseball team here. So really that an extraordinary blend of consumer brands and film and entertainment. And again, going back to the whole philosophy, there's always a door. And who are you also making an effort to create relationships with, both if anybody's looking at this as a career perspective? I did a lot with the PR organizations, networking organizations. And so I had a lot of contacts that I could reach out to when I was originally looking for a role, and then I ended up working for an agency. But again, it's not that old adage like, and who can you take advantage of, if you will. It's not about that, but who do you have the authentic relationships with in the industry that you want to be in? And how can you set yourself up for success or make success out of your lemons? That was a very long answer to your question.
That was a beautiful answer, and I'm like super inspired by it. There are so many things that I want to ask you follow-up questions to, but I want to be mindful of time as well. The first thing you mentioned was like the Cobra beer bit of it. And I've also come from India, so I know what it's like. And one thing I find really interesting is an approach to local marketing versus global marketing. That it involves different perspectives because you are talking to different audience in a sense. Like while there are definitely some similarities in the kind of audience, there's a lot of different approaches that you might have to take, or a lot of different points that you might have to, touch points that you might have to reach your client. So you've done it all. You've like across the globe. You've worked with different brands. You've gone to the UK, Australia, I believe South Africa as
Mhm.
well, if I've done
Yep.
my research right.
Yep.
How do these experiences shape your approach to brand building, and like what are the cultural sensitivities that you have to really keep in mind when you're doing
Yep.
something like this?
Yep. I think the one similarity is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Is never going to change. It's how you tell the story. And actually, that was one of the most amazing things that I learned about from my CEO at Cobra when I was in the UK. Like the way he told the story was amazing, and it was not to say that it was the same cookie cutter, but it was like it told the story of how he built the business. And it was, he went in his 2CV car going door to door to Indian restaurants selling the beer. And again, it's just the narrative and how you tell a story is what
Yeah.
continues to engage people. And that hasn't changed, whether it's through a press release, like whatever medium it might be, whether it's a press release or social media or video. People are still interested in, the versus Goliath stories, the little guy against the big guy. And for the big guys, when they're telling a story, they're developing narratives around their brand where there is a hero, right? It's always about a hero's journey, and or
Mm-hmm.
someone who we wouldn't have thought was a hero is the hero. And I think that in this world of AI, I use Gemini AI, and I'm kind of always yelling at it because it's very it gives me a good story, but it's so lame. And I've learned how to train AI. That's the other half of using AI. It's still so lame and generic. And I think that unless we have true, like, heart-centered storytelling, that doesn't change. And it's also about knowing how to tell the story. I equate it to when a girl says that I went on a date with somebody. She would start about when she was talking to her girlfriends and getting dressed and having a glass of wine and then leaving her house and you open the door. Whereas if you ask a guy, well, how was the date? He'd be like, oh, it was great. She looked really hot, or I kissed her, right? And so when you're
Yeah.
getting to that story, that's how you tell the story. It's those 2 points of the story and how you tell it. And that's the similarity that I think won't change. But I think when you look at the
Mm-hmm.
nuances culturally, when we were launching the brand in India, and Ever was an amazing launch in the UK. It was absolutely not amazing in India. Like the standards were so much bigger and so much higher. And especially, I remember, our events used to have to be almost like rebel like, especially because India is for the beer, we were targeting more of a higher premium brand, but those brand drinkers are Scotch drinkers. They're not beer drinkers. And our events had to be really cool and in a unique venue, literally in the middle of nowhere. And the amount of money that we had to spend in India was outrageous compared to everything else that we had to do. But it was also because we were targeting a very different customer who had very different expectations. And
Mm-hmm.
so looking at the percentage of alcohol in the beer, that was actually considered kind of lame in the Canadian market. And so English beers can often be weaker than a British beer, right? And I remember when we were taking the brand to Canada, I was like, this is not going to fly. They're going to look at this and be like, what is this, right? So what was the brand narrative around it, and what was its complement that we used through food or using different characteristics of the beer to tell a different story? And so I think that's a thing that is particular to a specific market, is what is the market's tastes? What is the market's
Mm-hmm.
expectations? And I think that's natural for wherever you might be in the world, but those nuances are so important.
Yeah, to add to that, I think one of the things is also just relatability. One something that I can relate to, and that could change if I'm in a different space. So it's like really listening to, who your audience is. And that's exactly what you just mentioned, right? Like just profiling, understanding your client in different places and realizing that it can't be cookie cutter at the end of the day. That would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah.
You've co-founded Jive PR and Digital, and that's also an award-winning firm. What inspired you to take this entrepreneurial route? And I mean, you did touch up a little bit on this earlier, but if you could dive a little bit deeper into it, and what are the biggest lessons you learned during that journey? Can you
Yeah.
share those with us?
So yeah, I couldn't find a job. Nobody would hire me. And I remember interviewing for these coordinator jobs, which was ridiculous. At this point, I was, I trying to remember now, I think I was 28. So I've been in the industry for 11 years and I could not get a senior level job. They've been said, you've been gone for too long. And I'm like, I was running head of global PR. I've been across the world and it just didn't fly. And so then I started applying for entry level jobs, which people were like, what are you even doing here? But they were seen as younger and fresher. It's like I could not win no matter how hard I tried. But sometimes it's just the universe directing you to where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just said, am I allowed to swear on here? Can I swear?
Yes. Go for it.
Like, this is bullshit. Like, this is absolute bullshit. I have so much experience. And looking at the brands that I'd worked on and the work that I did, like when I was in London, again, I was doing stuff with Selfridges and with Branson, and you're telling me you can't hire me? Like, it's crap. And so I just ended up, I remember, I think I job hunted for maybe 3 weeks, I think. And also, relied on my network because I still have friends in communications and I was seeing what agencies were hiring and stuff. But I was like, this is so fucking boring. And I just didn't want to do it. And I think that's entrepreneurship is just a bit of part of my DNA. Like my mom's an entrepreneur. And
I love that.
I naturally fell into entrepreneurship. And I've had some clients say to me CEOs and presidents, which to me is mind blowing. And they're like, you're so brave. I'm brave? Really? And I think that was it was a concept that was so foreign to me because it wasn't bravery. I needed to pay the rent. I wanted to have a life. I wanted to not live with my parents at 28 because that's where I'd come back to. And so I think entrepreneurship found me. And then actually before I merged my business with my business partners, I'd actually moved to Australia. And I ran my Vancouver-based business in Australia, in Sydney. It's actually possible when it's Sydney summer and Vancouver's winter. And I just ran the business out of there. It was great through technology. Nobody actually had any idea I was in Australia. Back then we had VoIP, which was like a USB key that you put into your computer, and that was your phone number. So everybody's calling me on a Vancouver number. My day would end at 12 o'clock, 12 or 2. Yeah, it was 12 o'clock. My day would end. And I would go get lunch and a flat white, and I'd hit the beach by 2 o'clock, and I'd call forward my 604 VoIP number to my Australian mobile and be at the beach at 2 o'clock, And it was always very well timed because at the time their ozone layer was next to non-existent. So you don't go to the beach until around 2 o'clock just for the safety of your own body. But it was amazing. And I think that that's when it was like, this is a viable career or a viable way for me to have my love of travel and to be in different places. And again, this was such a long time ago. We're talking 2007, 2008 at this point. And so the world of nomadic entrepreneurship hadn't even happened. And it's funny, I see all this stuff now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm old, right? I mean, I am, but it now found me. And I think it does take bravery to become an entrepreneur. Like there is no predictability. You can set up the predictable systems and ways for predictable income, and it's possible to do that. But you don't know when a major client might pull out, or you don't know something like COVID. Ability doesn't exist anywhere now. And I think that we, and particularly entrepreneurs, have to get comfortable with that because we no longer have a choice.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my journey as well. Like I moved from India over here and I had like what I thought was great experience there, but it wasn't Canadian at the end of the day. So, finding employment, and especially because I came in like after COVID, it was kind of difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of led me to, what do I really like doing in communications? Oh, I like talking to people in a podcast workout and consulting workout and like, exploring these different segments just happened because of the way Canadian market looks at foreign experience. But yeah, I'm glad. I mean, what the journey is great. And like you say, don't just make a lemonade stall. I find that very inspiring. I'm going to like write that up and put it up somewhere because I think it's something that I'm going to look at every morning for sure. This brings us to our next segment, which is an icebreaker. So it's kind of rapid fire style. I'll throw a question at you and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind, and you can just like answer in 5 words or less. Just keep it running. It's not too difficult. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. So, what's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Email marketing or content marketing?
Ooh, content marketing.
Influencer marketing or affiliate marketing?
I'm saying this for me, not recommend necessarily for clients, affiliate marketing.
And long form or short form content?
Short form.
Emails or meetings?
Emails. And actually WhatsApp messages.
I like that. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Depends what day.
City life or the countryside?
I like a city next to a bigger city. Sorry, a bigger town next to a bigger city.
The best of both worlds, eh?
I know. People are like, could you just choose one? And you can tell I'm not about choosing. I say I live my life in rainbows, and people are like, that is the worst answer we've ever heard. But it's true. It's not black and white. It's rainbow.
No, the way I look at it is you always have a solution where you can have your cake and eat it. And like, if you can, like, why not, eh?
Yes.
Cake's delicious.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What do you think is the biggest marketing trend of 2024?
Oh, I think to find the trend is the biggest trend.
That's kind of true. One word to describe the future of marketing?
3 words.
Okay. No. That's fair. Most overhyped marketing tool? Mm-hmm. Most underrated marketing strategy?
Personal touch.
Best piece of marketing advice you've ever received?
Received marketing advice, to be honest with you. That's one question I've never really asked. I've asked for everything except marketing advice.
Wow. First thing you do in the morning?
Food and just be in my own energy.
I love that. Hobby you're really passionate about?
Not that I'm very good at it, cooking.
Oh, wow. A book everyone should read?
You have to ask me about all of mine here. I'm looking at all of my books here. I have to say The Food of Love. The Food of Love.
Okay. I'll put it.
Yes. I think I love like storybooks and great stories, and it talks about food and love. And Italy. It doesn't get any better.
That's the best food. One skill every marketer should have.
Listening.
Your proudest professional achievement?
Being on Canada's list of top 100 entrepreneurs.
If you could work in any industry other than marketing and communications, what would it be?
Beer. That was always my favorite. Beer industry.
If you could instantly become an expert at something, what would it be?
In trends, actually. I'm fascinated by it. My brain does not work like that. And I love how you can make such data-driven decisions for marketing, because I come to marketing from the creative side. So the other side of it is what I think I'd want to learn.
If you could live anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
Sydney. Any day and every day.
Interesting. That brings us to the end of the rapid fire round. You did great. Thank you for sharing those thoughts so candidly with us. And we'll move on to our next segment, which is understanding the state of the industry and the challenges that there are. So we live in a very fast-paced digital world. And what are some of the biggest challenges brands face when trying to create a long-lasting story or a very sticky narrative today?
You know what? I have to say that I'm not dealing with big brands as much these days. I'm really working with entrepreneurs and creating their own personal stories. We need to continue telling those personal stories. But from what I can say about the client side of things is that they are demanding more and more results, which is not something that can always be guaranteed through marketing, right? And I think there's part of the education process that still needs to continue, that we can do, all of work, but we can't. So for a restaurant, for example, you can do all the digital work you want or ads and things like that, but you cannot guarantee that a customer is going to come in. And I think that goes to the larger piece about marketing is that there's never a guarantee about what's going to happen. And so expectations have to be managed on all sides for what it is that you can deliver, what is the ROI that is possible. And clients also need to be patient. That has not changed. And I think the other part of it is that clients and brands are coming with the expectation that, to a digital marketing company, for example, and saying, okay, just create our social media channels, do our content. And the goals is to grow a significant amount in terms of followership. Well, that's not possible without dollars. And I think there's still this out there that the channels will grow organically. It's not possible. It has to be paid. It's the way that the channels are done. And so I think that's another education piece that agencies are still coming up against when it comes to working with clients is the game of social media now. It's not like it was before. And huge content marketing game as well. It's not just put up a piece of social media. There is strategy, there's development, there is budget that is done in content marketing.
Earlier this summer, I launched my marketing and communications consulting business. Since then, I've launched a website, I've ran a social media summer campaign, and shared that entire journey online on LinkedIn. If you could use some help sharpening your brand or leveling up your social media, please reach out to me. I would love to work with you. You can reach out to me by emailing me at marketingoverchai@gmail.com. I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to me. And now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, that is very true. And I think when you talk about managing expectations, a number of people who think going viral is something that is controllable, and like to a certain extent, yeah, there are certain variables that you can look at, but the number of people who think that that is always good for the brand and that is always something that you need to do. The education piece is also something that most communication professionals have to spend a lot of time explaining. As a woman in leadership in Canada and across the world, you've been recognized for being just that. What are some of the challenges you faced in leadership roles, and what are the challenges that there are in the marketing and communication space for women?
Yeah. I think that being a woman in business, especially seen by millennials, that when we're clear about what we want, and we're not bitchy or anything, but when we're clear about what we want, what our expectations are, that we actually get bullied by our staff or we get complained about. And I think it was very surprising to me, and the fact that it still happens. Whereas if it was a man who did it, nothing would happen about it. It's just to be accepted. And I think that that's still the case. And I'm still seeing the case that a woman is not allowed to be strong. And again, it's not about being, overly aggressive or something like that, but it's the nature of being a woman. And then I think the other piece of it is that it's inner imposter syndrome, if you will. So in 2014, I was a YWCA Women of Distinction finalist, and I was actually interviewed by a Punjabi publication, and I'm not Punjabi. So I was like, I have to do this interview in English, right? Like, and so nothing you can help me with will help me. I have to do this in English. So they say, hey, no problem. Questions they asked is that what is your responsibility to South Asian women? And I have to be honest because I'm a different kind of South Asian woman, it had never really crossed my mind about being a role model for other people. And so I think I had to really take some responsibility for my own perceptions and how I was perhaps leading in order to be a better role model. And then I think the other piece of it is when I won business in Vancouver 40 under 40, I'd actually said to my sister, I was like, I feel like an imposter on this list. And she's like, why? That's so weird. She's like, you won all these awards and things like that. And I was like, yeah, but I'd look at everybody and everybody's white and I'm the only brown face and I feel like I'm an imposter. And she says, you're a trailblazer. And again, going to my inner barriers or my inner perceptions is that I felt weird about it. And find somebody who's in publicity, I can create any story out there, but it was my internal perspective about it feels weird actually. Or I couldn't see myself as a trailblazer. I saw myself as different, or I saw myself as othered. And I think until, put on my high horse about changing my perspective, that it was like, you have done all of these things. And not because of your color, but you have done these things and you are a role model because of your color. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective. It helped to clear up my imposter syndrome.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's deep, and I'm sure a lot of people will be helped with that perspective. Moving on to the next segment where we talk about the trends in the future. What are some of the major trends you're seeing in brand building and communication?
I think a lot of inclusive marketing. That's a big one that I'm seeing. And it could be that's generally, my friends who are running agencies, they're getting a lot of business in these specific areas. And it's because there's a recognition about the inclusion needed. And it is for people of color, different abilities and the budgets, but more about the recognition of the need for it are huge. There's huge opportunities. And I think that's going to be one of the things that will continue to grow, especially, I grew up in a time when you were just othered simply because you existed. And because I have brown skin, humorously enough, I was othered by my own community because my skin is actually not brown enough. So I was like, fucked if I do, fucked if I don't. That was basically my attitude about the whole thing. We got used to being othered. And even one of my friends, she's actually an influencer in the Punjabi community, and it was actually really, really on her heart. She really wanted to do this. And I was working with her, coaching her in growing her own agency. It was really on her heart, and she followed her heart, and her platform has exploded to 87,000 followers, and she has the biggest brand deals. She's actually on a cruise right now with Royal Caribbean, leading a South Asian cooking class, and it's amazing. And so there is the recognition that it needs to be done. But funny enough, one of the things that she was saying is that she'll often get approached by brands to do like an Indian version of fish and chips. And so she's just like, but you Indian-fy food, like it literally does not work. And the way that they want to do it. And she's like, where's the actual authenticity behind it? And that's another thing is that if you're going to be inclusive, you need to have the true authenticity in it. It's not about adding spice to a Canadian dish, or you know what I mean? Like it's incongruent. And if you're going to do it, it needs to be done properly. So yes, inclusion absolutely is where we need to be at, but it needs to feel true to our own essence, because otherwise you're just co-opting the culture.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How do you see this role of influencers evolving in brand building? Because right now I think it's still very like you mentioned, right? The brands asking for certain things, but I think in the future there might be a shift, because brands are building up, and like people are becoming known, they're relatable, and they're trustworthy because they're a person in front of you. So how do you see the role of influencers evolving in the future?
I think it's actually going to get bigger and bigger. And maybe the role that they play in it, in terms of really owning so much of the narrative, that might shift, and the way that they're being used. But I think influencers or content creators, maybe that's just it, because you may be a content creator of color who has 5,000 followers, and somebody else is a content creator with 1 million followers, but you are a very specific type of content creator. I think the needs for content and the needs for desire, especially from people, is going to get greater. That storytelling, that influence. I think people have lost a lot of trust in I don't know. I don't feel that. I know that people have lost trust in the mainstream networks. There's a real, we all know this, a shift in the consciousness in the world right now, where we're looking at big business, or we're looking at big media, and it's not what it is, And I think more and more as we move to a time in history where there is personal empowerment, but from a positive way. It's not about like I'm arrogant, but I'm a person who can make my individual choices and what's right for me, or my values, or how I wish to shop, what is true to me. More and more, we're going to be finding influencers that are aligned to, our own individual awarenesses, and we are going to rely on them. The media has shifted significantly. I mean, unless the media puts up a paywall, they're all going bankrupt. They're all making money by getting news online. And so, yes, I think influencers will play an even larger role, maybe not in the way that they currently are doing. And I mean, already you can see it. There was just the Arabia just did a campaign, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher her name, so I'm not even going to say it, but it was the Algerian who was, he was a man, but she was a woman. And Vogue Arabia just did a beautiful reel series on Instagram with her at Fashion Week in Milan. And so when we're starting to take these like true role models and using them to be able to tell stories, I think that there's such a beautiful blend in there.
Yeah, that's really great. Moving on to something that you're doing right now, you work with entrepreneurs globally and help them scale their business, because that's something you've done personally. What are some of the key strategies for scaling a brand from 6 to 7 figures? Tell us about how you do it.
Yeah. So usually when you're going from whatever 100,000 getting up to your 7 figures, you're already doing something right. Or you actually just hate everything and you want to start all over again. And we figured out how to do that. But I think that there's so much stress. Like, you're amazing. You want to grow, but how do you do it? And you kind of, as entrepreneurs, it's the shiny spoon syndrome. It's like squirrel, like what's the shiniest thing? Where's the squirrel, right? And so to have somebody be able to sit down with you and look at your business and actually say, okay, this first of all, how do you love running your business? What do you love and what you hate? Like, let's get rid of all the stuff that you hate. Or if you have to do something, how do you figure out how to do it with joy? And actually sitting down to what the entrepreneur wants, because my generation was sold a very cookie cutter model and boring, frankly. Nobody wants to do that. But I think that we're not starting with what is it that I actually love in my business, or how does this actually align to my life? That's such a missing component. If I want freedom and flexibility, well, why am I going out to get office space? Like it doesn't make sense. And so again, going into the business, they're likely already doing something that is very revenue generating. And so we just start to clean everything up. Are you actually making money? We'll look at the numbers. And there's so much confusion around money and money management and cash flow. So it's basically like a business cleanup in a way that you love your business and then set it up to be able to scale, but without stress, without burnout. Entrepreneurs are always wearing so many hats, and this is about taking off the hats, but making more money.
I love that. So yeah, all the roles you've had have been like very fast paced, very high growth, very, very strategic. And with that comes a lot of stress. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think your work-life balance is, 10 being the best?
I would say now it's a 10. And I think that in 2014, 2015, we were opening up multiple offices. And so I think it was just stress because there was just so much work to do. Like it felt like it was never ending. But it was fun, we had offices in Vancouver, Toronto, and Los Angeles. So I was traveling everywhere and it was great. So it was stress because there was so much to do. But also when you are scaling to that level and in that level of growth, it is terrifying because you don't have the cash runway to do everything. And so our systems were not prepared. Our financial systems were not prepared to handle it. I'm around and begging for a line of credit at the last minute because things got so stretched when I should have just asked for a line of credit at the beginning, but I was like, we're able to finance everything. And I have this, not chip on my shoulder, but I thought we were invincible. Physics, who am I to ignore physics? And so I think about if we just done it differently, I think that was a really big thing. And then now I'm a mom. And so I really set up my day for what is it that I want in my life. And I'll be honest, I don't wake up on time in the mornings. I know I should get up every single morning and meditate, but I just want my quiet time, mostly because it's like when my son is up, we're into it. And so when I drop him to school, then I set up my time to meditate or take a walk. Like those things really take precedence. And then I'll do my work for a few hours and then I'll try and get a little bit of downtime before I pick him up. I need the brain break. Otherwise my brain is so full on. I'm not fully present. And so I've actually built work around my life. Basically it's life first is the way that I do it. And wow. It's great. It's amazing.
Wow, I love that. Are there any hobbies or passions you have to like de-stress?
Honestly, just going to the gym. I mean, my trainer would say I'm his worst client because I don't actually work that hard. I work out, but it's a mental health that I need to get that done. I love yoga. I'm a yoga teacher. I like a terrible cook, but I'll still do it. And then just enjoying the things that, like my sister went to a candle making workshop a couple days ago, or yesterday I was like, I actually feel like hip hop dancing. And so I found an online class and just hip hop danced. And, I kind of started treating every day as an adventure of what is it that I feel like doing in the moment and in the day, and opposed to what am I committed to as a massive hobby, because I've just started to kind of open up the doors to everything. I also love golf. So in the summertime, I love it, but I do have tendonitis now as I'm older. I'll just enjoy doing it. I like to be trying different things. I think that's the hobby, is the adventure.
I love how you put it. Like I've heard a lot of people say you have to be fully present and in tune with what you want to do, but the way you define it as like every day is an adventure and just do what you feel like. And that makes it so much easier to interpret and follow, right?
Yeah. I've realized I hate being committed to things. And I'm just like, I actually find it boring. And I don't know if you know about human design, but in human design, it's basically your energy type for how, when you were born, you're a specific energy type. And I'm a projector. So I do have inconsistent energy. And that's also when I coach my clients, I do it on a 30-day accelerator, which, and they get the support throughout the month. But I find that my attention span isn't, I couldn't imagine running a 6-month mastermind, although never say never. But I couldn't imagine running a 6-month mastermind. I've learned about what it is that I want. That has been so key. Like, this is what I need. And I even say, like, one of my friends, when she goes to the gym, she's hardcore. She wants to work out and she wants to sweat and she wants to just like, move really fast and stuff. But that stuff bores me. And the more I learn about myself, but I do have to make sure I don't end up in some major comfort zone, because otherwise I'm like, oh, it feels so good, but I'm just gaining so much weight. Like, it can't work like that. I have to be active and, it's seeking those edges to be able to grow. But there's nothing wrong with not wanting to commit to some like long program or to some team hobby or something. Like, I'm not down for it.
Okay. So I know you have you're an ICF certified coach, and can you tell us what led you to do that? And, how does this role complement your work in brand building and entrepreneurship coaching? And tell us a little bit about that.
I think just as the evolution of me grew, and like I said, I am in my 40s and I have all of this experience. And it was actually funny. Somebody said to me, they're like, you know how to grow a business to $1 million? I'm like, yeah, doesn't everybody? And she's like, oh my God, no. And so that was what led to, you need to do something with this. Because originally I was like, oh, I can teach people how to do PR. So I actually started a coaching program to teach people how to do their own PR. And there's some very like 8-figure online entrepreneurs who've done that in their businesses. So I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I should do it. But then my friend was like, you're like silly. Why not doing this? And so that was the impetus to actually get properly certified to coach. I guess in the middle ground, typical of me, is that it's coaching, but it's also consulting and actually going into the business and cleaning it out, excavating it, optimizing it for growth. But it's the coaching piece of it, is that what is actually on your heart? How do you desire to live? How do you desire to live your life? How do you desire to have your business? And, one of my own coaches, she's an 8-figure business owner, but she lives on a homestead in Maine and has a farm. And these are not things that we naturally think about what entrepreneurs do or an 8-figure entrepreneur does, right? And so that's why so much of it comes into what's actually on your heart. And then we will look at the business and build it from there.
What advice do you have for aspiring brand builders, entrepreneurs, particularly women who want to make their mark in the industry?
Be smarter. You don't have to work harder. I think that's the biggest thing. And it's not about working harder, not smarter. It's about be smarter, be better. And that's what it was, is that, and I was eager to learn, but where could I be efficient or something? And so that goes down to entrepreneurs or to anybody wanting to get into the industry or somebody wanting to be promoted. Be better. It's really that simple. I don't need to see you slaving over hours. And frankly, if your quality of work is not any better and you're working more hours, I've got some serious concerns. But be better. That is the thing. And be better, be smarter. That's going to be the thing. But not, and let me say this, don't be smarter to the point that you're not a team member, because I want to see both. And I think that is the be smarter, be better human is what will get you farther.
Mm-hmm. So what's next for you? And are there any exciting projects or initiatives you're currently working on?
I actually just launched my own podcast. So we are now in the 4th episode and I love it. Like, you can tell I love to talk. So it was a natural thing for me to do. And as much as I said, I love Instagram as my favorite channel, and such a block to doing social media content. I feel I'm not a natural writer. I don't that it's inspiring, but then I was like, why am I just, hello, when the student is ready, the master appears. And it was like, your master is a microphone and a podcast. So I've been having a great time doing it. It's, just full on like giving everything out that's to getting your business from 6 to 7 figures. How do you actually do it? A lot of questions that I get asked about is the back end of the business and the financial back end. So next week actually is going to be the most boring podcast you've ever heard and why you need to listen to it. That's actually the episode name. And then also doing some interviews with some extraordinary entrepreneurs and coaches talking about diverse topics from feminine power, feminine and masculine energies, the nervous system, non-energy leadership. So just diverse topics to be able to support the entrepreneurs they grow and scale their business.
I tune in all the time and I really love the energy. I love how it makes me feel at the end of an episode. I feel very motivated. There's something about you that is very inspiring, and it's because you have proof points to success. You are happy to talk about it. You're happy to share that path. And just seeing another brown woman up there, it is very, very motivating to me. So thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for sharing, that part of yourself with us. It is very, very inspiring. And I really appreciate everything you do.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. And I'm so honored that you tune in. And you're right. We need to see more brown faces. And, actually, when I moved from Canada to the UK and saw all of these brown faces in the media, and I was 24 when I moved to the UK, I was like, it's cool to be brown. And that was the first time in my entire life that I felt like I was cool, because I'd always had, and actually my own coach calls it like my ego persona of second class citizen. Like it's so embedded in me that I had to do a lot of work not to listen to that anymore. But when I could see brown faces like mine, in the media, or who ended up being on BBC, hosting BBC evening music hours, and all of a sudden to see these role models, it's so true. And I think more and more we need to still see this. So many women of color in leadership positions. I think that's so important. So I'm glad we could do that.
I will leave a link to her podcast in the show notes. Is there anything else you'd like to tell audience about what you do and how you do it and where they can find you? And I'm happy to leave more links in the show notes as well.
Amazing. You can get me on Instagram at Almira B. And anybody has any questions, you can DM me as well, or even podcast ideas, what you'd want to hear on a podcast or social media. I'm always looking for content ideas. But Kate, thank you so much for having me, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yep, I'm so happy you're here, and thank you so much for taking the time. I'm feeling very lucky today to have had 1 hour, just picking your brain. It's been great. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great week.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your support really means a lot. Please leave us a like and share it with your friends. And I'm trying to get to 100 followers on Spotify. So if you could head over there and just give me a 5-star rating, as well as, follow me there, it would really, really mean a lot. I'm really trying to build something here, and I appreciate your support on this journey. Until next time, keep those ideas brewing, and I'll see you on the next episode of Marketing Over Chai.